everyone. In this video, we will be solving systems of three equations, and this is the first part. When we say systems of three equations, there are three equations, that's first, second, and third, and there are three missing variables, x, y, and z. So our task is to figure out what is the value of x, what is the value of y, and what is the value of z that would make the equation true. There are steps that we need to follow in order that we can solve this system of three equations. The first step is to eliminate x in the first and second equation. So this is the first equation and this is the second. So I'm just going to go ahead and label this as step 1 right here. So in the first step, we are going to eliminate the x in this two. So I'm just going to go ahead and write that up here. I will give you a trick on how to eliminate this really quick. So what are we going to do here is that we are going to multiply these two equations by the first or the coefficient of the x. So if this was 4, I will multiply the first with 4. And since this is 3, I will multiply the second one with 3. So what I did was the first, the coefficient of x in the second will be multiplied to the first. The coefficient of the x in the first will be multiplied to the second. And we are going to distribute this. So each of the 4 will be, the 4 will be distributed to each of the terms inside the parentheses. So that we can go ahead and rewrite this as, that would be 4 times 3x is 12x, 4 times y is 4y, and then 4 times negative 2z is negative 8z, and that is 4 times 1 is 4. And then I will do the same thing for 3 times 4x is 12x. And then 3 times negative 2y is a negative 6y. 3 times z is a positive 3z. And then 3 times 15 is 45. Now, what are we going to do next is that we are going to subtract these two equations every time. So using this trick right here, we will subtract these two every time. So that would be 12x minus 12x is crossed out. So we eliminated the x, and that is the purpose for the first step. So that we're going to go ahead and simplify the y. So 4y minus negative 6y is positive 10y. Negative 8z minus 3z is negative 11z. And then we have 4 minus 45 is negative 41. So this is the equation for the first step. Now, what are we going to do next is we are going to move on to the second step. The second step is to eliminate x using the second and the third equation. So again, that's what we did on the first step was the first and the second. For the second step, I'm just going to label this as S2 right here. We are going to use the second and the third equation. So I'm going to write that up here. Okay, so what are we going to do is we do exactly the same thing as what we did here using the trick. What are we going to do is whatever is the coefficient of the x on the first equation, you multiply to the second. So this will be multiplied by 4. The coefficient here is invisible 1, so I will multiply this first one with 1. Although multiplying 1 would still be the same, but I'm just showing you the general method because sometimes in other equations, this coefficient here is not 1. Okay, so then we go ahead and distribute each of these, distribute the 1 to each of the terms inside the parentheses and do the same thing for the 4. And then I'm going to show the work down here. Okay, so I distributed the 1 and that came out to be this equation right here. I distributed the 4 and that came out to be this equation right here. So what are we going to do again is we always subtract it just like the first step. So I'm going to subtract this. So once we subtract this, the 4x and the 4x can get crossed out because we have 4x minus 4x is 0. So we have negative 2y minus 20y is negative 22y. And then 1z minus negative 12z is 13z. So that would be a plus 13z. And that is equal to 15 minus negative 64 is positive 79. So then this will be the equation for step 2. Now, after we're done with step 2, we're ready to move on to the third step. The third step is to eliminate y using the equations from the first step and the second step and solve for z. So I'm going to label this as step 3 right here. So then again, for step 3, we are going to use the equation from step 1 and the equation from step 2. So I will write that up here. Okay, so I wrote the equation from step 1. It's this one right here. I wrote the equation from step 2. I wrote that down here, and that is actually step 3. Our target in this step is to eliminate y. So we pretty much do the same thing. We are going to multiply the second equation with the coefficient of the x. So that's 10. So I will multiply this by 10. And then this is negative 22. I will multiply this other one right here with negative 22. And then we do exactly the same thing. We're going to distribute the 22 to each of the terms inside the parentheses and the 10 inside the parentheses as well. So that our equation would come out to be okay. So what I did here was I distributed the negative 22 times 10y, that is negative 220y. Negative 22 times negative 11z is positive 242. Negative 22 times negative 41 is positive 902. And I did the rest of the other second equation right here. And so what are we going to do next is pretty much the same thing as this. We always have to subtract these two. So we are going to minus this. Once we minus this, negative 220y minus negative 220y, they get crossed out. So it becomes 0. So then 242z minus 130z is 112z. And so that is equal to 902 minus 790 is 112. So then we can go ahead and divide both sides by 112 so that we can solve for z. So divide this by 112 so we can cross this out. So our z is actually equal to 1. So this is our value for z. So all these z's here in this 3 equation will be 1. Now let's move on to the fourth step. The fourth step is to plug in z into any of the equations from step 1. So any of these 2 equations right here, or step 2, and solve for y. So we're going to plug in this z into any of these. So then we can go ahead and pick any of these. So again, this was the equation from the second step. This was the equation from the first step. So we can pick any of those. So let's just pick this one right here. I'm going to label this as S4. So then we go ahead and write the 10y minus 11z is equal to negative 41. We already have the z, so I'm going to plug in the 1 here for the z. So that would be 10y minus 11 times, that is negative 41. Again, the z is 1, so I will put that in there. And so this becomes 10y minus 11 equals negative 41. So we add 11 to both sides plus 11. So then this would give us 10y is equal to negative 30. And so we divide both sides by 10. We divide both sides by 10. So then we are left with y is equal to negative 3. So all of the y's for these 3 equation would be negative 3. And so we're ready to move on to the 5th step. In the 5th step, we're supposed to plug in y, z, these two, y and z, into any of the original equations that we have up here and solve for x. So then I am just going to show the work right here. We can pick any of these equations. Let's just pick the first one right here. So I'll label this as step 5. So that would be 3x plus y, and that is minus 2z is equal to 1. So then we go ahead and plug in the y and the z and solve for x. So this would be 3x plus, we plug in the y, minus 2, we plug in the z, and that is equal to 1. So then we go ahead and plug in the y, which is negative 3, and plug in the z, which is 1, and then we simplify. So this would be 3x minus 3 minus 2 is equal to 1. So we combine like terms, so these two can get combined. So this becomes negative 5. So 3x minus 5 is equal to 1. Then we want to solve for x, so plus 5 and plus 5 to both sides. So then we go ahead and cross this out. That is 3x is equal to 6. We want x by itself. So then we have to divide both sides by 3. Divide this by 3. So then our x is equal to 2. So this is our value for x. So all of these three equations that we have here will have a value of x is equal to 2. And so we can write everything all out for the solution to this in coordinate form. So that would be 2. And then we have the y is negative 3. And then the z is positive 1. And this is the solution to this systems of 3 equation up here. That's it. If you find this video helpful, hit like and subscribe for more math videos. See ya!